Good afternoon and welcome. We are so excited to have you all gathered with us today to celebrate an exceptional group of leaders. My name is Sarah De Lebec, and I head up the Emerging Leaders in Food and Ag initiative. Thank you for being here today for what should be an exciting program. Before we get started, a few logistics for you. We are running this program as a meeting so we can have more interaction because we love seeing each other's faces. You are all muted, but we encourage you to use the chat to share comments, congratulations, and ideas. We'd love for people to know who else is here and to be able to recognize our 25 finalists. So please make sure you have updated your name on Zoom so it shows your name and affiliation. You can do that by clicking the three dots in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom image, your own Zoom image. When you click on that, there's a drop-down menu, and one of the items is rename, and you can rename so that it says both your name and your affiliation. And that will allow us to know where everybody is. So after the formal program today, we encourage you also to stay on as we have some time for informal connecting. And that's when we'll turn on our mics and I'll be able to connect a little at another level. So we look forward to that. And that is all I have for logistics. For those of you less familiar with emerging leaders, I'd like to share a little about how and why we came to be. My background and what I've spent the past 15 years doing is creating communities of impact within food and agriculture. I serve as Managing Director of Regenerative Food Systems Investment, or RFSI, an operation committed to catalyzing connections and capital for regenerative food systems. And I am also on the leadership team at Acres USA, a company committed to educating farmers about producing non-toxic and nutritionally dense food. In 2019, my colleagues at RFSI and I started the Emerging Leaders in Food and Ag initiative with the goal of connecting across the food system, because there are a few things that I've learned during my time in the sector. The first of that is too often people work within their corner of the industry and don't understand or experience any other corners. And also, number two, when people start to communicate and learn about other parts of the system and what challenges other stakeholders face, they are better able to build innovative and collaborative solutions. And lastly, and most importantly for today, there are just too many incredible people out there doing amazing work that are not recognized outside of their own circles or celebrated for their contributions. So that brings us to why we are here today. Emerging Leaders in Food and Ag is now in its second year of honoring up-and-coming leaders who are working in many different ways to build healthy, vibrant, and just food systems all around us. We started this year's process months ago with an open call for nominations of leaders who are building a stronger, healthier food system from farm to consumer. We received lots of nominations of incredibly talented, driven, impactful, and innovative individuals. More than 16,000 votes from you and many others helped us narrow down the field of nominees to the 25 finalists we are celebrating today. These inspiring individuals have taken on problems big and small, working in agricultural production, developing agriculture and food policy, training farm entrepreneurs, working on carbon markets and land acquisition, building supply chains, addressing racial justice and equity in our food system, and so much more. Today, we are here to honor and celebrate all 25 of these finalists and the transformative contributions they are making to our food system. Here is a look at the 25 finalists for the 2021 Emerging Leaders in Food and Ag Awards.
What qualities make an emerging leader? Meet the 25 finalists for the 2021 Emerging Leaders in Food and Ag Awards. People who are working across the country and in our communities to shape the future of food and agriculture. Alyssa has organized hunger relief drives, reforestation projects, climate action campaigns, and industry collaboratives around circular packaging. Alyssa's work is helping create business opportunities, increase food and agricultural job opportunities, and support more climate-resilient farming systems. Through her website, Amber has created a place for Black women to feel connected to one another through gardening and planting. Aria and Harley's unique perspectives have led them to develop innovative and visionary solutions, including tackling agricultural finance as a significant and entrenched challenge to the health of our food and ag system. Cecilia's education and passion for family gardening assists individuals in her community who are suffering from food insecurity by providing them with the skills, resources, and knowledge needed in their journey. Emily has a love for connecting with the craft brewing and distilling communities and strives to position her companies as leaders in the nationally emerging craft malt industry and the regenerative agriculture movement. Through the Women for the Land initiative, Gabrielle works to ensure women farmers and landowners have access to the resources, technical advice, and policy facilitators they need to succeed in building resilient food systems. Through RFFPC, Gwen's mission is to build connection for a resilient, ample, and diverse local food system by restoring agriculture as a cornerstone of healthy communities. Eno is growing food in volunteers' backyards, teaching her volunteers to farm, and then using the harvest to feed low-income BIPOC in Ulster County, New York for free. Jen and her husband Jesse have worked with students to develop and implement the Grow Feed Change project, ensuring that the youth involved learn how to create sustainable food supply models in their communities. Jenny's sincerity, passion, and generosity with her knowledge has inspired many to reconnect food to the land, to invest in the soil where food is grown, and to care about the health of their community. Jessica is a dedicated soil health advocate in the food, finance, and farming industries who helps guide campaign development, product launches, and content strategy for news, publications, and events. In only his first full year of production, Joshua transformed a very old farm into a small, regenerative, organic paradise that he uses to teach the community and visitors what it means to operate a regenerative farm. Kayla is building the world's largest community of backyard gardeners and activating this network to address food insecurity and climate change. Crystal is a tireless leader, advancing the National Farm to School Network's call to action to have 100% of communities hold power in a racially just food system by 2025. Marcellus is working to produce honey, train aspiring BIPOC farmers, and organize a group of black beekeepers across the country to address health, nutrition, entrepreneurship, and racial equity. Matt has spent more than a decade as a passionate advocate of the local food and the farm-to-table movements, working to increase food knowledge and understanding. Meredith recently started her own business where she provides resources and services to help local farms better promote their products and give them avenues for community outreach. Michelle's dedication to creating a more equitable and accountable coalition of young farmers, BIPOC farmers, and supporters will have lasting impacts on the National Young Farmers Coalition's work. The Beans are award-winning farming experts who believe that regenerative farming is our best hope for feeding ourselves without destroying our planet, and train small-scale farmers to use regenerative techniques. Sarah creates regenerative agriculture carbon credit projects for the Regen Network and operates the largest urban agricultural site and the first at-scale urban farm incubator in the USA. Shreya believes that the advancement of food recovery will not only increase the scope of aid for those facing food insecurity, but will also help mitigate climate change and ensure a safer, cleaner world for future generations. Stephanie brings a wealth of practical knowledge that she frequently employs when meeting people where they are and developing their farm-to-school and farm-to-institution programs, partnerships, and potential. Vanessa's advocacy focuses on the use of food, agriculture, the environment, and natural resources as tools to increase historically underrepresented, underserved, and disenfranchised communities' civic engagement in all aspects of society. Weaving together her skill as a master gardener, her entrepreneurial instinct, and her rich network of collaborators, Wanda is cultivating gardens rooted in urban areas that are food deserts and front lines for climate change and social injustice.
What an incredible group of leaders, right? Thank you to each and every one of you for your dedication to your communities and the food system at large. Now, it gives me great honor to introduce our keynote presenter for today's program. Robin O'Brien is a co-founder and managing director of Replant Capital, a financial services firm scaling climate solutions on farm. She is also a Fulbright scholar, best-selling author, and widely recognized speaker on global food systems. In 2020, she was recognized on Forbes Impact 50 list for her work at the intersection of agriculture and climate. I met Robin in 2019 as I was planning the first Regenerative Food Systems Investment Forum, and I was blown away by both her passion and her unique ability to rethink our food system and the detrimental way our finance system interacts with it. She is a systems thinker, an entrepreneur, an innovator, and a true leader. She inspires me to continue to influence change, and I hope she will do the same for you. I'm so excited to have her with us today. Please welcome Robin O'Brien.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for your incredible leadership. It has been an absolute joy to watch you step into everything that you are offering to this space and to all of us. So thank you for your work. And secondly, that list of finalists is an extraordinary group. And as I sat there listening to each of the individuals and what they've accomplished, we need a bigger platform. We need these voices represented in Forbes. We need them represented in the Wall Street Journal. We need people to read about these solutions as these viable, passionate, intelligent entities that they are now. We don't have any time to waste. And I know that everybody that's here today joins me with that sentiment that, we stand at this intersection that is dire and it is urgent. And something that I say all the time is you cannot fix a broken food system with a broken financial system. We are here today confronting this crisis because of the extractive demands that were put on our land and our farmers by the financial system. 98% of the financial system is white male. 70% of our agricultural system is white male. And we can talk about biodiversity all day long, but if we're not talking about diversity of representation and diversity of governance, we will not succeed, which is why the panel and the group of 25 that you've brought together is extraordinary in what it represents. It represents the strength of the union of the fabric that we need to pull this together to solve this. It will not be done by any one profile. It will not be done by any one demographic. If anything, what we have inherited is that mess. It is that train wreck. And today we stand in this place where $426 billion is what our farmers carry in debt. And that is primarily these white farmers, because the farmers of color were so discriminated against for so long that they didn't even have access to capital. And one of the things that I challenge anyone that I speak with, whether it's in the media, journalists, investors, is when we use this word regeneration, that's a privilege that we have as white people, because farmers of color have only ever known this type of farming, this type of stewardship. White farmers got into the $426 billion of debt because they were offered access to capital to finance this agrochemical model. And that's the model that has broken our food system. That's the model that has strangled the soil. And that's the model that all of these amazing individuals have come together to address today. $426 billion in debt carried by US farmers to finance the agrochemical model is appalling, in my opinion. It's equally appalling that we use the term regeneration when farmers of color have been farming with that type of stewardship for their entire lives. So we stand at this powerful place where we can own the entirety of this story. We can own the wisdom and the knowledge and begin to really tap into the leadership that farmers of color represent as we move this forward. And we can marry it with 21st century technology and the opportunities and the tools that are in front of us today as we leverage technology on farm. And it's going to look totally different to anything that we've inherited in the past. And as we stand at this intersection, it is a powerful, powerful place to stand. We are at the intersection of human health, soil health, climate health, and the health of all farmers, the health of all farmers, and that includes their financial health. And to me, that last piece is the piece that does not get talked about enough. In part because of the arrogance of the financial institutions that have governed farming in the United States for the last several hundred years. There is an arrogance there that we have heard about from procurement leads inside of multinational companies. There is an arrogance that we have heard about from female farmers. There is an arrogance that we have heard about from farmers of color. And that arrogance will not solve the problem that we all confront. It is time to put it down and to step into this with a humility and an enormous level of collaboration that has not yet existed. It is why forums like this are so incredibly important, because we are building that collaborative energy that is absolutely essential to solving this problem. With $426 billion in debt, most US farmers cannot get their heads above water to even think about transitioning their farmland. And yet that is absolutely what has got to happen. 85% of consumers in the United States are choosing to buy organic, something organic. I could go around every square on the Zoom and ask, what is it that you buy organic? And there is something that all of us are buying that is organic. 75% of all grocery store categories now carry something organic, and yet only 1% of US farmland is organic. That is insane. The math flat out doesn't work. So what happens is we import organic from all of these other countries, which doesn't benefit the US farmer. It doesn't benefit the diversity that we know we need, and it does not benefit the US consumer because it puts a higher price point on all of it for all of us. So what does it look like if we could reimagine our food system? What does that look like? In Europe, 8.5% of their farmland is organic. They have just made a bold pledge that 25% of farmland in Europe will be organic by 2030. We are so far behind, and we are far behind because we have had one demographic managing and governing this conversation. That's the bottleneck that has to be broken open as much as the 1% of farmland that needs to be busted open and expanded onto. We will not get there unless we have the diversity of governance that we need. We need women leading in these initiatives. We need people of color leading in these initiatives. And we need those who have been creating the problems for the last several decades to sit down. That's the opportunity, is to bring these voices together. If anyone had asked me if I would be doing this, I would have said, you're totally nuts. I grew up in a really conservative Texas family. I was never taught advocacy or activism. That was never part of my childhood or any of my upbringing. It was only when I had my fourth child and she suffered from food allergies that I began to explore what was happening to the health of our families, all of our families. And to learn that 1 in 2 men are expected to get cancer in their lifetime and 1 in 3 women, and that cancer is the leading cause of death by disease in American children under the age of 15, and that 1 in 2 Caucasian kids and 1 in 3 children of color are expected to be insulin dependent by the time they reach adulthood. These statistics are horrific. 1 in 4 kids now has allergies, autism, ADHD, or asthma. And again, if I went around every single one of these squares on this Zoom call, we could speak to people we know who are struggling with these conditions. The impact on all of us is tremendous. And as a result, we spend more on healthcare costs than any other country on the planet. That's insane. The investment needs to happen way before the pharmaceutical company. The investment needs to happen on the farm. And we cannot continue to shovel the capital into the same hands that have governed it for the last several decades. We need to put capital into the hands of a diverse population of farmers so that we can tap this incredible collective wisdom that exists. Up until this point, we have not been able to have these kinds of conversations, or the platforms didn't exist, or the white consumers and the white leaders just flat out ignored it. And it has to change. It absolutely has to change. We will not solve it unless we have that diversity of leadership and that diversity of representation. And so what that requires is what is exemplified here today. It requires courage like none of us have seen before. It requires strength. It requires intellect. It requires passion. It requires the humility to sit down and listen when you don't know what you don't know. That is one of the greatest opportunities in front of so many of us today, is to simply sit down and listen. Because the discrimination that has gone on for so long, it happens in venture capital funding. It has happened on the farm. Only 2% of venture capital funding goes to women, and an even smaller percentage goes to entrepreneurs of color. And I think that is absolutely upside down, because we have to work so hard for the capital that we get. We are so careful with how we use it. It is not easy. We do not take it lightly. We know that we cannot go back to the till quickly. And so I would bet that any entrepreneur, any female entrepreneur of color, is where you want to put your capital, because of how careful we have to be with how we allocate it. It requires creativity and intelligence, and it requires an incredible tenacity to stay in the game. And so as I look at all of these remarkable leaders that are assembled here today, and I think about this journey that I have been on, and the extreme isolation and the persecution that I confronted early on in my work. When I first stepped into calling out genetically engineered ingredients in the chemical operating system and the portfolio of chemicals required to grow them, people tried to call me every single name you can possibly imagine. And what I learned early on is that love makes the impossible possible, and courage is contagious. And when you can continually tap into those two things, they serve as a rocket fuel that will power you through some of the most challenging times. Expect the challenging times. Expect people to want to kick you down and knock you out. You have innovation, you have creativity, you have passion, you have intellect, you have drive that most people only dream about. And they will envy you. And there are going to be people who will be up against you every step of the way. See those as opportunities to build your strength. See those as opportunities to build your skill set. The sword gets sharper because of how it is polished against the stone. So when you confront those people that are challenging you, step into that as an opportunity to grow, and step into that as an opportunity to build your strength. It will continue. You will continue to have certain challenges, and you will be asked to speak out and speak up. And I promise you that every time you find the courage to speak up on behalf of yourself, you are speaking up on behalf of others. And that is how we change things. We have to be brave enough to call out these extractive systems. We have an extractive agricultural system that has extracted so much from families of color. It has extracted so much from the soil, and it has extracted so much from the climate, because it is governed by an enormously extractive financial system. And so over the years, as I've learned all of this, and this is tough stuff, nobody wants to learn how incredibly destructive this process has been. And yet, as a mother of four, I couldn't stand there and do nothing. I had to find the courage, I had to find the strength and the resilience to move forward, to find the place to be creative, to think about solutions to some of these challenges. And with only 1% of our farmland is organic, the opportunity in front of us to transition farmland to regenerative and organic agriculture is extraordinary. And you can totally flip the script and say, here we all stand. We have inherited this absolute train wreck of a problem: the racism in the food system, the corruption in the food system, the arrogance in the food system. We have inherited that, which means we stand in front of an enormous opportunity to drive this change. And I would hope that 10 years from now, 20 years from now, every single name that is represented here today in this emerging leaders group is recognized continually for the outstanding work that all of you have done, because we need all of you. This is not something that any one group can fix. I hate that we even have to pick one winner for this amazing group of individuals and organizations that are around the table today, because all of you serve an incredibly critical role, and none of us, not a single one of us, can fix this by ourselves. It is going to require all of us. It is going to require humility and listening and collaboration so that we can drive this change forward. And that's the opportunity in front of us. So as I was doing this work and calling out the double standard in the food system and how we create products here in the United States that are full of all kinds of artificial ingredients that we are learning are increasingly detrimental to our health, whether it's cancer or diabetes or autism or allergies or ADHD. Again, correlation is not causation. However, when you learn of the double standard and that our own American food companies are formulating their products without all of these artificial ingredients in other countries, that double standard to me has always been intolerable. And the fact that the only place that people were initially able to find products without these harmful ingredients were in places like Whole Foods, which had the nickname of Whole Paycheck. My goal, my life's work, which has manifested in different chapters over the years, is to make clean and safe food affordable and accessible to anyone who wants it. And the opportunity that I'm stepping into is the challenges that we see in our supply chain. With only 1% of farmland is organic, no legal definition of regenerative, there's an incredible opportunity to stand where we stand today and say, how would we define a healthy farming system? How can we stand at this nexus of human health and soil health and climate health and the health of our farmers and create a win-win situation? That's where we stand. So we started Replant Capital to really move into that intersection, to get capital into the hands of farmers so that they could transition their farmland, so that they can build soil health and build organic matter in the soil. And that as they transition to regenerative and organic agriculture, we're able to capture metrics around water conservation and water infiltration and pollinator health and carbon sequestration. Those are real biological metrics that we can capture as we transition farmland. And so we've brought investors in, and they are primarily women right now, who have come in to help fund this transition to regenerative and organic agriculture. And we look at capital the way we look at farmland. How can we create a regenerative capital system? How can capital be used in more ways than just flat out return in ROI? Let's think about return on soil health. Let's think about return on water. Let's think about the return on air and pollution, and how can we improve these metrics? And those are some of the metrics that we return to our investors beyond the obvious, beyond the typical return on investment that people have grown to expect. And I would hope that years from now, our fund over the next 10 years, the goal is to deploy $2 billion in capital to get it into the hands of the farmers. But this is a $426 billion opportunity and beyond. It is estimated that it will require $700 billion to transition US farmland to regenerative and organic agriculture. That's the opportunity in front of us. And it's going to require us to rethink a lot of different pieces of how we budget things here in the United States. It's going to require all of us, absolutely every person who is part of this call today, to step into leadership beyond what you're already doing. I have been asked to step into policy conversations here at the local level, the state level, the federal level, policy conversations in other countries. I've been asked to do things I never in a million years imagined I would be asked to do. And that gets to something really important in this work too, and that it is how you take care of yourself in this process. We need all of you guys in this for the long game. We need you in it for the next 10, 20, 30 years until we really have tipped it in the other direction and we have really restored soil health, not just for the health of our families and our farmers, but for the health of our climate. And what that is going to require is that you take care of yourselves. And so part of your job every single day, and I share this with the members of my team, is that you take care of yourself for the asset that you are. You are an extraordinary asset in this work. And just as you take care of all of the other assets that are on your balance sheet, make sure you are taking care of yourself. So if that is a day where you are just absolutely inside out with stress, and believe me, I have had them, those are the days where the best thing that you could do for yourself, for your investors, and for your team is to shut the computer and step away from it. We all know on this call how incredibly powerful stepping into nature can be and what that can do, but you have to take care of yourselves in this process. I've seen too many people who have gone down, too many people who have not been able to manage the stress. So whatever is required of you in that process, whether it's an incredible support system, whether it's family members, whether it's exercise, whether it's meditation, whatever it may be, use it and know that that is one of your most important meetings of the day, because the headlines are pretty dire. And they're not getting much better, and they probably won't. And we all have responsibilities beyond the professional responsibilities that we all share here today. But we need you in this for the long haul. We need you in this 20, 30 years from now. We need Sarah to be able to come back to you in 10 years and say, I want you to do the keynote for this event. In 20 years, to be able to have the alumni of this group come back in and say, this is the group that started this thing, and here they are today representing these extraordinary leadership roles in our industry and beyond. And the other thing I will say is that we are in front of this in the United States. There are a lot of countries that are leaning into what we are doing and asking what we are doing. That has been really surprising to me. We have had interest in our work at Replant from around the world. I have been pulled into policy conversations in New Zealand. There is so much that we are all learning. And the thing that we have to remember is that we really are only one team. This is one team. There is one planet that we share, and we are one team. So for us at Replant, we're radically collaborative. We hope that others will take what we are doing and build their own models, because we cannot do this by ourselves. You cannot do this by yourselves. So where you can, use gratitude and use generosity and leverage those tools and leverage those resources, because it will create an abundance of opportunity. And one of the last things that I do want to leave you with is that when I am in those really bad, hard, dark places, and we've all been there, whether we're worried about funding for the next year, whether it's something in a partnership channel that's going down, or whether there's some kind of tension that has been created on the team, to step into gratitude, I have learned is one of the most powerful things that you can do. This year for my birthday, I chose to send a letter of gratitude every week to somebody that has impacted me in my life, in my career, in my personal life. It's an extraordinary practice. It does not require much at all, and yet it is something that will give you so much in abundance. To really focus on where there is gratitude in your life as we deal with what is increasingly truly an existential crisis that's happening. I see it in my kids. They're between the ages of 16 and 21, truly an existential crisis. And when you can remind yourself on a daily basis of the gratitude that is around you, the gratitude that you hold in your own heart for the team that you've assembled, for the creativity that you have in coming up with these solutions, for the ability to actually pull it together and harness it into a business model that you have now pitched to this amazing organization that Sarah has put together. All of that, remember to be grateful for that in this hardship that we all encounter as we move this forward. And then the other thing I will leave you with is, do not be afraid to ask for help. Anything that we have ever built, anything that has been built, has had this amazing supportive scaffolding that has gone up around it as it has been constructed, whether it has been the Eiffel Tower or a building in New York. There is supportive scaffolding that goes up around it. Something that I have learned in my work with these multinational food companies and personally is that we as individuals, we need that supportive scaffolding too. You are all leaders, and you will continue to grow into your roles as leaders. And there is a supportive scaffolding that is needed around that as you do, because you are transforming personally and you are changing. So be mindful of who you choose to put around you as you grow into that leadership role. It is critical, because we all hope and pray and want you to grow into the strongest, most resilient, most resourceful leaders that you can all be. So think about intentionally how you build that supportive scaffolding around yourself as you continue to grow into this leadership role. Faith has been an enormously important part of my life. I have leaned into that in some of my darkest moments. Every morning I have readings that I do that are meditative that really help me stay grounded and stay focused and stay clear. It is part of our job as leaders to do that. And so find those resources and those tools that work for you. It's not one size fits all. Each of us are different. We have different families around us, different communities, different tools and ways that we manage stress and opportunities, but make sure you put those into very good practice as you continue to emerge as leaders in this space. And so lastly, I will say thank you so much for having the courage to put your idea into action. You have already done one of the hardest things, which is to take something that has just been floating in your head and floating in the air around you, and actually make it tangible and real. And you cannot underestimate how hard that is. There are millions of people that have really good ideas, and they don't have the strength and they don't have the courage to put them into action. All of you have already done that. So I really look forward to coming back in 20 years and listening to all of the keynotes that you all will have to give as you continue to soar and have the extraordinary success that I know is in front of all of you. So I just want to thank you all so much for the courage and the heart and the passion and the intellect and all that it's taken to get you this far. I am so grateful, and it gives me so much hope for what's in front of us. So thank you.
Wow. Okay. I was just gonna say, let's hear it in the chat for Robin. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this heartfelt and motivating message. Lots of work ahead, but tremendous opportunity as well. You all should be so proud of your work and the work you've yet to finish. Thank you, Robin, for that beautiful reminder. Fueled by Robin's tremendous energy, I'd like to recognize our 25 finalists once again. Here they are now. You are all an inspiration. Each one of these finalists was evaluated based on a rubric criteria, including the answers they were asked to submit to questions about their work and their influence. From this process, we were able to determine our 10 Emerging Leaders in Food and Ag Award winners. And let me tell you, based on the answers from all 25 finalists, if these leaders are our future, we are in very good hands. So now, the moment we've been waiting for, it gives me great pleasure to start introducing our 10 Emerging Leaders in Food and Ag Award winners of 2021. To help me do this, I'd like to invite my colleague at Emerging Leaders, Anthony Corsaro, to join me in announcing the winners. Anthony is a key member of our team and also a leader in his own right, having started his own company, Regeneration Nation, that both builds awareness about regenerative agriculture and supports other organizations in their work in the space. So with that, I'm going to announce our first winner. She is a passionate advocate for sustainable agriculture and fair opportunities in the sector. As the National Young Farmers Coalition's Federal Policy Director, she helps farmers build their political power by applying to federal boards and advocating in front of their elected officials. Vanessa Garcia Polanco's advocacy focuses on the use of food, agriculture, the environment, and natural resources as tools to increase historically underrepresented, underserved, and disenfranchised communities' civic engagement in all aspects of society. She has led the Young Farmers Coalition in developing new farmer-driven federal policy setting processes and has forged relationships with partner organizations to solidify the coalition's pillars, including the new pillar of immigrant and labor rights. Her vision of a food system free from the racial disparities between workers and landowners and policy setters. She inspires by action and someday hopes to develop a public service academy for women of color to run for office and seek appointments in food and agriculture positions. Please join me in congratulating Vanessa Garcia Polanco.
Congrats, Vanessa. Okay, we move on to our second winner. Our next award winner went from a walk-in volunteer to the executive director of an organization addressing food deserts, urban agriculture, education, and more in Denver, Colorado. Kayla Birdsong was new to town when she walked by Grow House, got curious, and eventually started volunteering. Over 8 years, she worked her way up through the organization and eventually became executive director. Because of Kayla and the work of Grow House, many more kids of color will have a love of sustainable food in Denver. This year, Kayla became executive director of Fresh Food Connect, a nonprofit seeking to create a market for homegrown food. She recognizes the enormous challenge of food distribution and the resulting impact on food insecurity. She would like to see homegrown food become a more significant contributor to our food system and is working to build the world's largest community of backyard gardeners. The development of female leaders within the food system is something she is also passionate about and continues to support through mentorship relationships. Congratulations to Kayla Birdsong.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Kayla. Our third winner of 2021 is paving the way for a stronger local food system in her corner of the world. Wanda Stewart is an urban farmer and executive director of Common Vision, who is helping grow a rich community food system in West Oakland, California, and surrounding areas. Under her leadership, Common Vision nurtures a more healthy and just society by planting and maintaining fruit tree orchards and school gardens to serve as a foundation for engaged academic learning and environmental conservation. These gardens are rooted in urban areas that are food deserts and front lines for climate change and social injustice. Weaving together her skill as a master gardener, her entrepreneurial instinct, and her rich network of collaborators, she's realizing a beautiful vision of what local food can look like. Of her work and her hopes for the future, Wanda says, there is no reason why we cannot be organized, collaborative, intentional, and compassionate enough to feed every human being everywhere. We are working to change our society's ability to share food resources and minimize its waste in ways that will regenerate and sustain the vitality of people and the planet. Please join me in congratulating Wanda Stewart. I feel like Anthony and I should maybe make a little noise since you guys are all muted, like, woohoo! Okay, we'll do our best, all right?
We can do snaps.
All right.
Congrats, Wanda. Okay, our next winner. This 2021 winner is a champion in soil health, working to create a healthier food system. She is a co-founder and the executive director of Great Plains Regeneration, a nonprofit collaborating with farmers and ranchers to enhance biological biodiversity, supporting human and socioeconomic resiliency. Jessica Nadd serves as a liaison between small and large stakeholders in the farming community. She works to allocate resources for regional food system development while increasing new market opportunities for local producers and increasing overall soil health. Jessica explains, there is a well-acknowledged educational gap limiting producers to access information on soil health best practices, while simultaneously, the increase in soil degradation threatens public and environmental health, the production of safe and nutritious food and fiber, and the loss of water quality. These challenges discourage current producers from adopting soil health practices and prevent the next generation of young people from coming back to the land. To address this, Jessica has coordinated many hands-on events and trainings nationwide. Let's all congratulate Jessica Nadd.
Wonderful, congratulations. Our next award winner was leading food systems change long before she even graduated high school. Shreya Venkat is an 18-year-old freshman at Georgetown University majoring in global health, who believes that the advancement of food recovery will not only increase the scope of aid for those facing food insecurity, but will also help mitigate climate change and ensure a safer, cleaner world for future generations. As the co-founder and CEO of Nest for Us, over the past 5 years, Shreya and her team have served over 100,000 meals to marginalized populations at over 60 shelters and food banks, and rescued over 350,000 pounds of food from corporate businesses, restaurants, schools, and the community. She has designed an app called Nestables, which is intended for people who have excess food to donate, shelters seeking food sponsors, and volunteers looking for service opportunities. She wants to increase Nestables' reach and visibility, connecting food donors and people in need nationwide. If she had the power to change anything in our food system, she says, investing in innovation, particularly innovative technology, is a critical step towards building a better future. But it isn't enough to fix our current food system. Policies must also be put in place to limit food loss and ensure food security in effective yet affordable ways. Please join me in congratulating Shreya Venkat.
Not bad for 18, not bad for 18. We'll be excited to see, like Robinson, where you're at in 10 or 20 years as well. Okay, our next winner. The next award winner is working in an often forgotten part of the food system, food packaging, driving changes to bring us closer to a regenerative supply chain. Alyssa Harding is the director of membership at Sustainable Brands, where she is working with 80 of the largest global companies to support their brand transformation in the areas of governance, supply chain, and brand purpose to move the needle towards our climate goals. She is also a core advisor and the director of the OCS's Packaging Collaborative, which brings together 40+ companies across the country in the shared effort to scale compostable packaging solutions for food and beverage companies. This past year, she was awarded Green Business prestigious 30 Under 30 honor, recognizing her continued leadership and energy around scalable sustainability solutions that leverage business as a force for good. She mentors students at universities across the country, offers pro bono consulting to local nonprofits, and is always looking for pathways to positively impact her community and the world at large. Please join me in congratulating Alyssa Harding.
Congratulations, Alyssa. And now we move to a winner working to revive the local farming community in the Yampa Valley of Colorado. Meredith Rose is actively involved with several organizations that promote local food, young farmers, and healthier food systems. She has worked in farming and now runs the Community Ag Alliance Food Market in Steamboat Springs, where she coordinates and works with local producers to sell their food. She has also recently started her own business where she provides resources and services to help local farms better promote their products and gives them avenues for community outreach. Meredith wants people to consider the economic, environmental, and health factors in their food purchases and to realize that buying local solves many of these problems. Congratulations to Meredith Rose.
Congrats, Meredith. Okay, we are on to our 8th winner, nearing the end of our list of 2021 winners. And it's an inspiring group. This year, Crystal Oriata served as the Senior Director of Programs and Policy at the National Farm to School Network. She was a tireless leader, advancing the organization's vision for a just food system while pushing her team to think outside the box. An example of this outside the box thinking became the organization's call to action. By 2025, 100% of the communities will hold power in a racially just food system. In addition to working on national food systems and racial justice, she spends her nights and weekends volunteering in her local community. And she says, if I could change one thing about the food system, I would make it centered around people and not profits. I fundamentally believe that food, housing, and healthcare have to be seen as a right and structured in a way that all people have access to these rights. I think that when we are able to create a society that centers people first, we will be able to have a racially just food system. Please join me in congratulating Crystal Oriata.
All right, congratulations, Crystal. Soil health nonprofit Landcorp has become a need-to-know name in food and ag because of the pragmatic, strategic approach taken by our next winners, who happen to also be Landcorp's co-founders. Aria McLaughlin and Harley Cross focus on building the missing infrastructure and incentives that will make the rapid adoption of soil health practices possible here in the United States. By working to quantify the risk mitigating benefits of soil health practices, they are bringing powerful stakeholders such as agricultural lenders, insurers, and investors to the table in support of our nation's producers, their local communities, and our environment. By strategically positioning soil health as a nonpartisan Big Ten issue, they've built a broad coalition of farmers, businesses, NGOs, and scientists to put soil health at the center of a resilient food system. Their wins include securing over $50 million in federal investment in soil health in the 2018 Farm Bill and guiding the implementation of the soil health demonstration trials at USDA NRCS, the nation's first program dedicated to improving soil health and carbon sequestration. Aria and Harley's unique perspective have led them to develop innovative and visionary solutions, including tackling agricultural finance as a significant and entrenched challenge to the health of our food and ag system. Congratulations to Aria McLaughlin and Harley Cross.
Okay, last but certainly not least, our 10th winner. Since taking the helm as executive director of the Artisan Grain Collaborative, Alyssa Hartman is at the center of a growing movement within Midwestern agriculture and has ignited an explosion of relationships between small grain growers, buyers, breeders, processors, bakers, brewers, and distillers. It's a lot of people. Creating the connectivity that will allow small grain farmers and their markets to grow and flourish. Alyssa explains, when stakeholders aren't in communication, there's no room for progress. When farmers, processors, makers, researchers, advocates, and activists come together, understand each other's challenges, and choose to speak a common language and listen carefully, the opportunity for progress is infinite. And indeed, Alyssa's work is helping create business possibilities, increase food and agricultural job opportunities, and support more climate resilient farming systems. She has also built racial justice into AGC's work, offering trainings to members and facilitating group discussions, as well as in her capacity as a board member of the Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, where she has been active in the group's Racial Equity Planning Committee, Committee and in his racial equity trainings. Please join me in congratulating Alyssa Hardman.
All right. Well, I am excited to present our 2021 Emerging Leaders in Food and Ag Award winners. Congratulations to these wonderful visionaries, and thank you all for paving the way for a healthy, resilient, and just food system. Keep up the excellent work. And thank you to everyone in our audience today. What an honor it has been for us to share all of these 25 amazing leaders with you. We look forward to celebrating these leaders with you well into the new year. And we look forward to seeing some of you back next year as we search for 2022's emerging leaders. We will have lots of exciting updates next year, so please stay tuned. Just a few announcements as we wrap things up, as that concludes our formal programming for the day. I heard a lot of you in the chat, saw in the chat that you all would love to connect post-event, and emerging leaders would be happy to facilitate that to make sure that happens. That is exactly why we're here, is we want everybody collaborating and meeting across all these different spaces. So love the enthusiasm, and we are going to make that happen. So thank you all for getting on board with that. We love that. We're wrapping up the formal program, and we would love to invite all of you to stay online to connect here virtually for a little bit, and just have some informal discussion and networking, get to know each other a little bit, and capitalize on this opportunity of having so many great leaders here in the room. So with that, I'll pause for a few minutes and let us kind of finish putting our chats in and get settled, and then we'll come back for some discussion. But I just want to close by saying we at Emerging Leaders are honored to get to interact with all of you and all the great work you are doing. Thank you for participating, and keep up the amazing work. You guys are the future of our food system. Thank you.